The Tuna Show, The Tuna Show, The Tuna Show, The Tuna Show.
Thanks so much for doing this. I'm very excited to chat with you.
I imposter syndromed
Um,
myself this morning, overthinking, oh my God, do this right now because I go between different structures and different systems. And I got really hugely into Trello, and I had all these really complicated boards, and it was all great. And then I just suddenly, as quickly as I started using it, I stopped using it. And then, yeah.
I'm exactly the same way. This is part of why I am so curious about this question of how do people organize their lives and how do people from all different walks of life and brain setups do this, because I am definitely all over the place and like different systems in different places and getting caught up in a system like Trello or Asana or whatever and getting really into it and then completely losing track of it and all that. So
Yeah.
yes, I completely relate and understand. And I think that when I was launching this podcast, I made a lead magnet of an ebook with all of the different productivity types, to-do list types based in lots of research. And it was very interesting and also relieving and the opposite of imposter syndrome to really learn about how different people are and how valid all of these different types are. So I'll send you that ebook. You can take a look through and I think you'll feel seen and relieved.
Good.
I like to start every interview by saying, how do you normally answer the question, what do you do?
I'm a copywriter and author. I've been a freelancer for 26 years and I wrote a best-selling guide to self-employment. I've also written 2 books about language, which are essentially fun and nerdy guides to spelling. That's quite a lot.
That's awesome. That's a great tagline. I like your LinkedIn that your tagline is from blah blah to ta-da. Could you elaborate a little bit more on what that means?
Yeah, of course. Most of my clients don't come to me and ask me for copywriting services or editing services. They send me a document and say, can you work your magic on this document? So I started to think I need to kind of build that into a service, like a defined service, which I now call my DocuMagic service. Clients have called me over the years a word wizard many times, and I thought magic, wizard, it kind of all goes together, and it just summarizes that sort of taking a strategic look, an in-depth document, just transforming it into something that people actually want to read and which goes deep into the customer's own language. And perhaps before it might have started as something that was written by 4 different people in 4 different tones of voice. And now it's kind of really focused on what the client needs to hear, help them make the decision that the client wants them to do.
What are the general rules for taking something from blah blah to ta-da? Or what is the typical type of problem you see? And then how do you use your word magic to
Yeah,
transform
that's a
it?
really good question, actually. 2 things that really stand out, I would say. First of all, the clients really often write from their own perspective. So they think that I'm going to call them clients and readers. Clients are the people I work for. Readers are the end user of the product that I produce. The client thinks they need to reassure the reader with how many years of experience they have or how highly qualified they are. It's not really about that. It's more about helping the reader feel seen and helping them come to the conclusion that they can trust the client to deliver a solution to a problem that they're feeling. A lot of it is changing the focus from being client focused to being reader focused. And doing that involves a lot of tweaking to the language, addressing the reader directly as you, for example, rather than saying something abstract and generic like, we do this for our clients, because at that point, the reader doesn't know who the client is. They just need to know if they can self-identify. So that's one of the big things. So sort of talking about themselves too much. But then also another thing is kind of using that language that is not focused on the reader and perhaps identifying their target audience as a group of people and then feeling like they're broadcasting their message to a group of people rather than really getting super clear on who the reader is and making everything directly conversational to that reader.
I'd love to demonstrate your expertise and get some free advice. What would be some some positioning language for the to-do show to describe it to a potential listener as intriguing and clearly as possible.
The difference between kind of saying, I have this podcast and I do this and I talk to people about this, it's more like, oh, hey, are you someone who uses to-do lists? Like, this podcast is for you because you're going to learn XYZ. It's just like a flip in the language and kind of the approach and the positioning of the language, and just really more thinking about what the reader needs to hear rather than what do you want to tell them.
That's fantastic advice. The internet would be such a different place if everybody took that advice.
Wouldn't it just? So would LinkedIn.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've been a freelance copywriter. How did you then turn that into writing a book about how to be a freelancer?
So back in 2020, I had been freelancing for 20 years and I wrote a blog, which I shared on LinkedIn, about the secret confessions of a successful copywriter. I had the little tagline for it at the time. It was kind of how to go solo without going loco. And I was so chuffed with that. But the book, in reality, I self-published all 3 of my books. And when I first wrote Survival Skills for Freelancers, I wanted a client of mine who was working for a mental health organization to write the foreword. And he was so supportive and was like, this book is so needed, it's so reassuring, and it's empathetic, it's hot on your sleeve, it's properly real. It's not like generic business advice. It's what I've learned from 20 years of freelancing, all the mistakes that I've made, and hey, here's what I've learned so that you can avoid making the same mistakes and you can kind of find your definition of success much more quickly than I did. He was all for writing the foreword, but because he worked for a mental health organization, he was very much about positivity around mental health. And because I was using the expression going loco, I just was using it for the kind of synergy of solo, loco, going, go to go. And I loved it, but I had to let it go. I just realized when the blog that I shared got so much feedback from people saying, oh my gosh, it's so nice to actually hear the reality rather than the kind of hustle bro, 6-figure income, oh, I'm earning however much per month. That can just alienate people and make them feel really like a failure. Rather than focusing on how successful I am, I just decided to break it down into the 8 myths of self-employment. For example, going solo doesn't mean going it alone, and too many people try to do everything themselves. So you do need support, you need community and connection. You need, if you can afford it, you need to have somebody to help you with the tasks that you don't enjoy, you're not good at, and the things that don't make you money. So that's just one chapter, for example. And I self-published. It has since sold in 29 countries. I'd love to get it to 30. And it's helped thousands of freelancers all around the world growing confidence to set better boundaries and to avoid burnout, because it's all too common, isn't it, in freelancers? We kind of think we can do it all, and we've got maybe a special skill, in my case, a special skill with writing words. Disclaimer, because I have ADHD, when I'm talking, my brain's always firing off in different directions. So I always think people might think, oh, she's supposed to be good with words, but she's going off at tangents. But obviously I don't do that when I write. It's got something like 400 in the UK, it's got something like 470 5-star reviews on Amazon and an average of 4.8, even though the original book came out in 2020. There's a brand new edition that came out in 2025, so it's been updated. But yeah, and then from that, I wrote my 2 fun little books about spelling, which everybody loves. Yeah, I've had kind of a successful little side hustle.
That's amazing. Wow, congratulations. That's very impressive. How do you manage, and maybe how did you speak to this in your book? As a freelancer, you have the client work that of course takes so much prioritization, but you always have to be marketing yourself and your business and your skills. How does that fall on your to-do list, and how you prioritize between client work and promoting yourself?
It's so difficult, isn't it? Because the marketing, the social media, the admin accounts, all those things, that's not the core of your business. What I found was that I spent the first however many years fighting to try and do all that stuff myself and juggling it, and that's chapter 1. Literally, it's soul destroying. You start off as a freelancer and you think, okay, so words are my special skill, transforming people's documents, writing web copy. That's great. I'm going to be a freelance copywriter and I'm going to spend all my time doing the thing that I love doing. And that obviously buoys you up and gives you the energy. And if you're neurodivergent like I am, that gives me the dopamine, which gives me the motivation to do my best work. But the downside is that being a freelancer, it's essentially running a business. And so many people overlook that element. It's really important, first of all, well, as soon as you can afford to get support, the thing that you don't enjoy and you're not good at, I would do it, because otherwise you get to the end of the week and you just think, God, I've not really done very well this week. I've not done much of that work that I know is me at my best. And maybe if you are neurodivergent like me, maybe you've struggled to get motivated because we are not great at focusing on the things that we don't like doing. It's very difficult to get motivated for those things, but very easy to get motivated for the things we love. I started outsourcing about 10 years into my business, very late to the party with that one, but it was a mindset shift with the cost. I started off thinking I can't afford to do it, and then I realized that I couldn't afford not to do it. You mentioned marketing specifically. I think that sort of thing, working on your business instead of in your business, should be a non-negotiable. However busy you become, it's really important to schedule time out in your weekly planner, diary, whatever you do, and actually say, okay, I'm having 2 hours on a Wednesday afternoon, and that is working on my business time. And that's when you do your, I don't know, I'm not a great one for scheduling social posts or having a social plan, like a content plan or anything like that. I am in everything in my life, I'm very energy driven. So I can go, the end of last year, the energy was not with me and I was struggling. I really felt like I'd lost my mojo. So the result of that was that I didn't post on LinkedIn for something like 5 weeks, because I know that if I do and I fight through it, I know that anybody reading my post is going to get that. They'll take that energy from my post. You try to hide it, but you cannot hide it. I just wait until the energy is back with me. And then since the start of the year, I think we're 2.5 weeks into January, and I think I've done about 10 posts. You can tell the energy is with me, but a lot of people do like to have a content plan.
No, I love that. And again, that's one of the two doist archetypes, and that is absolutely what I am for sure.
Okay.
Is entirely energy based. And I feel like most of my life I tried to fight against it. And in the last year, really, I've been trying to be like, what would happen if I just listened to that as best as I can? I get so much better stuff done, and I'm so much less exhausted and drained.
Amazing, isn't
Like
it?
it's amazing to follow the energy. Yeah,
It's a game changer. As soon as
absolutely.
I
So you
started tapping into that, it really does change things. Something I talk about a lot is designing your work, your working week around what works for you. Because when you're freelance, you are working for yourself, and we tend to forget that, and we tend to fall into the patterns of what our clients dictate. You don't have to do 9 to 5 when you're freelance. You can get the work, as long as you get the work done and to a really great standard and you deliver on time. Your clients don't care what hours you work. So leaning into that when you're at your most energetic. For me, first thing in the morning, that's when I get my head down and get my writing time done. Usually by the afternoon, it's usually a little later in the day than it is here because of our time difference, but I am ready for a call in the afternoon because calls give me energy. Build your working week around your needs and your strengths and your productivity, and yeah, you'll have a much more enjoyable time.
Absolutely. Yes, I agree very strongly. So you mentioned that the way you prioritize tasks, or you sent this to me in the messages, is do, delegate, delay, or ditch. Could you walk me through that? I've never heard it before, but I love alliteration. So please, I want this in my life.
I don't know if you are familiar with the Matrix. Can't remember the name of the person who came up with it, but it's like a square with 4 different squares within it, and it'll be urgent, important, not important, or something along those lines. That just feels a bit too corporate, businessy for me. So I can't remember where I came across this alternative. It was suggested by some neurodivergent trainer of some sort, but that just, because they're kind of actions rather than statements. Oh, this task is important. Okay, but I want to know what action am I taking in response to this task. So if a task comes in on my email or something like that, if it's something I can do within like 5 minutes, then I will do it, get it off my plate. If it's something that needs that I don't really want to do, or maybe it's something that involves a skill that isn't necessarily one of my strongest, then I'm lucky enough to be able to outsource it to my virtual assistant. That's the delegate bit. So that's the do and the delegate. Delay is usually something that I think, okay, I don't need to respond to this straight away, or I don't need to action this straight away. And I've really worked hard to get better at this. So I will schedule in my Outlook calendar. So I'll actually carry things forward. A friend of mine uses a bullet journal, but I guess it's kind of the equivalent. It's like, okay, so I'm not going to do this today. I'm going to delay it. So I'll carry it forward a week in my schedule, and it just stays there as a task with a different color coordination. Do, delegate, delay, or ditch. Yeah, sometimes there are things that you think, actually, I'd be better off. This isn't really for me. I'd be better off passing it on to somebody that I think perhaps would be a better fit. Sometimes there are things that I just need to let go of, that I think, oh, I must do this, must leave feedback for this restaurant that I went to, and that's the kind of task that you can really easily ditch, because they do permeate your working day, even though they're absolutely nothing to do with work. So that tends to be how I schedule those things, how I deal with those tasks that come in.
And you've mentioned that your systems kind of change, but what systems are you using at this moment? You just mentioned Outlook, but do you do written lists, Outlook, calendar, combination of stuff?
I am very hybrid. I'm kind of between systems. The recent past, I became obsessed with Trello. Sometimes it takes me a long time to learn something, but when I become a bit of a power user at it, it's just like everything is controlled by Trello. So I had lots of different boards with different cards within the boards. Everything was great. But generally speaking, the way I prefer to work and to organize my freelance business is one project at a time. Not everybody is fortunate enough to be in the position to be able to do that. If I can do it, that's the way I prefer to work. I find it takes a lot of mental energy to go from one client's headspace to another client's headspace. It's like changing gear, but not quite so intuitive. The way I prefer to book work in is to have one project on the go at a time. If I get ahead of myself, which I very often do, or if somebody is late sending something through, I'll have a fallback task that I've booked in for when this big project finishes. That's the next in line. But what happens often is that I manage to bump clients forward. So having that plan of working on one thing at a time definitely makes life easier. In more my personal life, if I'm having a day, like the one thing that gives me overwhelm is feeling like going along and like getting stuff done, like loads of stuff done, and then suddenly I'll be like dropped to the floor sobbing because I just feel like everything is too much. Everything in the whole world is too much and I can't cope with any of it. So once I've had a bit of a cry, usually what I'll do is get I have a particular notebook, and then I will just offload everything that's in my brain. And then the only thing that makes me start to feel better is just going through and ticking those things off. Another thing that I do, which is a very specific tip, is I get a lot of my thoughts of, oh my gosh, I need to remember to do this. And I'll get those thoughts while I'm driving. What I will often do is my phone on airplane? It might still activate. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think it will. But I normally, while I'm driving, I'll just say, remind me when I get home to do XYZ. And then it pops up on a reminder on my phone. And that's a really good little tip that a lot of people don't know you can do. It very much is a hybrid way of working. When I'm in the middle of a project, I'll have much more structured to-do lists. And when I'm kind of outside a project, as mentioned to you on a message earlier, I've got a couple of weeks, or had a couple of weeks in January before a really big project starts. So I thought, right, I'm going to consciously spend this time actually meeting people in person, having these conversations, growing my network, building my relationships, and getting to know some more local business people. So I'm not currently as to-do list bound as I usually am. There's never been like, oh, I'm stuck in one way of doing things. I'm always experimenting with different things. But when I get into that personal sense of overwhelm, like everything is too much and too heavy for me, it's only writing a physical list and actually going through with a pen and crossing things out that is the most satisfying. And then when I've got, say, 10 of 20 things done, I'll start a fresh page and rewrite the 10 things so it's less messy. To-do list, write a new to-do list.
I do a lot of that too. I think of all of the guests I've had, I feel like you have the most similar brain, especially to do this
Oh,
brain
really?
as me. So
That's so nice.
yeah, it's true.
Connection on the other side of the world.
Let's see. I definitely want to get through. I want to address your 60 for 60 list. I'm trying to quickly look through all of my notes that I made. Okay, I guess if we can talk about the 60 for 60 and then maybe go back to something else. Okay, so yeah, you made 60 for 60 list of 60 things you want to do before you turn
hmm
60. Where did this idea come about? And did you make it all in one sitting or are you adding over time?
No.
And
Okay, so my daughter turned 26 last year and she said, "Oh, Mom, I've got a list on my phone of 30 things I want to do before I'm 30." And I turned 56 and I thought, "Oh, well, I should do the same. I should have one that's 60 things I want to do before I'm 60." It's actually been really challenging to come up with 60 things. I think I'm about 5 off, and there have been things that I've done and I've thought, "Oh, that's a win. I could add it to my 60 for 60 list retrospectively and tick it off." I've done that once or twice.
nice.
One real example of that was eat a prawn. It sounds like such a ridiculous thing, but I've gone through my whole life being a bit, oh, well, I was vegetarian from the age of 10 to about, I'm still vegetarian, but I will eat fish now, but I don't like seafood. I'm basically really picky and I'm gluten free and blah. But I went to a friend's for dinner. She knew I was pescatarian and she made a paella and it had all these prawns in. I said, "When would be a good time for me to tell you I've never eaten a prawn?" And she's like, "Oh, it's okay. You just pick them out. I was like, nope. I'm going to motivate myself to eat a prawn by adding it to my list. So that's what I ended up doing. Some of them are a lot harder to achieve than eating a prawn. It's an experience I will not be repeating. I am not a fan of prawns. They still remind me of maggots.
I'm same as you. I became a vegetarian when I was 7 and then started eating seafood in my 20s. And I tried a prawn for the first time at 24, maybe. And I had eaten them when I was a kid. But then when I tried it again, I guess I had developed adult onset, sensitivity, allergy. I don't know. I got like a full body rash. My skin
Oh,
turned blue and bumpy.
oh,
I feel like it seems crazy that we eat them, that other people eat them. They are like the garbage men of the sea. They just eat all of the grossest possible stuff and then we eat them. That's
don't.
crazy. I think, yeah.
We are much more
So
sensible.
yeah, I mean, I'm reading through. Oh, you have watched a rugby match? You're English and you've never even seen a rugby
Yeah, but you know
match?
what?
That's impressive. That's more impressive than the
Yeah,
prom.
well, there is more of a story behind this. I live in Gloucester, and Gloucester in the UK have a really successful rugby team. I don't know enough about rugby to tell you more, but they're a really well-known rugby team. Years ago, probably about 10 years, I did go to a rugby match. My experience was really bad because I was sitting on a seat right next to the aisle, and halfway through the match, some guy walks down the aisle, stops, throws up, so he was sick all over my back, and it was just like, oh, that's just the worst experience ever. I'm traumatized from it happening. I've kind of like wiped the slate clean, quite literally, and I've put it back on my
And wiped your
list.
back
Yeah,
clean.
I've just put it back on my list. So I
Oh my
might go and
gosh.
watch we have quite a successful women's team as well. I think it'd be quite nice to watch a women's game of rugby, but yeah, watch a game of rugby and just like wipe that experience out of my brain would be very nice.
Okay, well let's get to one that's hopefully less gross. I see. Oh, the one I just started laughing at was learn to cook quinoa. That's really
That
is it just because like you've tried and
I,
failed so many times
I
or
still haven't done it, and I feel like it's probably just like couscous. You probably just add boiling water and stir. It's just if I put it on the list, I'm more likely to do it. Because honestly, I just think because I'm wheat intolerant, I can't eat couscous, but I can eat quinoa. I'm like, come on, how hard can this be to do? You've picked two really easy ones there. I think you need to focus on something like way more dramatic, like the firewalk.
okay, well, the one you have to learn to cook quinoa is go in a helicopter. So
Yeah.
that,
I
that's
have a friend whose 23-year-old daughter has moved to Canada and she's just trained as a helicopter pilot and just qualified as a helicopter pilot at the age of 23. So yeah, That's pretty good. I thought, well, if she can learn to fly a helicopter, I can at least go in one.
That seems reasonable. Do you have a location where you'd like to helicopter?
When I've done trips to places like New York, and they're always have this really ridiculously expensive helicopter fly around across the Hudson River and over Manhattan or whatever they do, I've always thought that would be absolutely amazing. But realistically, I probably can't afford to do that. I'll probably end up flying over the Cotswolds, which is where I live. So it's where I live is very beautiful, known for being very beautiful and rural area. It wouldn't be a sacrifice to fly over the Cotswolds.
Or you could always go to Canada and have your friend's daughter highlight you.
I have
Could also
started
be
dumping
beautiful.
my holiday ideas on there as well, because I'm kind of like, oh, well, if I put it on my list, then I have to do it in the next 4 years. I've already got a few trips booked this year,
Yeah.
which are going to tick some of those off. I'm doing Annecy, going on a cruise with my
Where is
partner.
Annecy?
Annecy's in France. If you look it up, go on
Oh.
Instagram, look up Annecy. It just looks absolutely stunning. A bit like the Italian lakes. It's mountainous and it's got beautiful turquoise lake. And the town itself is a bit like, it's like a fairy tale town, honestly. It looks absolutely stunning. I'm amazed everybody doesn't go there, but it does seem to be still like relatively unknown.
Secret.
Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of people go there for skiing. I'm not a skier. I'm not adding that to my list either. I feel absolutely certain I would be the one to break my ankle. Yeah, it does look a beautiful place to go to. The next one I'm doing is the firewalk, which is at the end of next month. I was supposed to be doing it last year. I raised £260 for charity, which is the first time I've ever done that in my adult life. I've never asked for sponsorship for anything in my adult life. So I was really chuffed with that result and I'd psyched myself up. I was really looking forward to it. And then on the day they cancelled because there was a horrendous storm and they're like, we will reschedule. And I thought, do not you dare reschedule for a day that I can't do. So fortunately I've got that coming up, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to it because they give you like CBT kind of pep talk, cognitive behavioral therapy kind of techniques for how to be in control of your thoughts and this kind of thing. And I think that's not just going to help me do a firewalk, that's just going to help me in life. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's really cool. Can you tell me about one of the ones that you already have done?
Chopping wood with an axe.
Other than eat a prawn.
Chopping wood with an axe is the one where you found me on LinkedIn. So that's quite cool. But that was quite an easy one to...
That is very cool.
It was quite an easy one to tick off. But I was a natural. I absolutely loved it. My friend videoed me and I went like this. I was like, I just went... natural. And I just kept up. I was like, give me more wood. But I've actually got tendonitis in my elbow. So probably swinging a really heavy axe is like the worst thing I could have done. But yeah, I really wanted to do that one. I also want to smash down a wall with a hammer. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to fulfill that one, but feels like it would be a very satisfying thing to do.
Yeah, you could. Craigslist isn't the thing in the UK. What's the alternative, the similar thing? Whatever, like to those internet community forums or like on Facebook Marketplace or something. You could just post, "I'm looking to smash down a wall. Who has a wall that needs?"
That's a really
smashing?"
good idea. Yes, they can provide the safety equipment. I will provide the smashing.
Excellent plan. Well, okay, I have so many questions for you, but I'll ask my final definite question is if you could see anybody's to-do list in the whole world, whether that be a specific person or a job title, whose to-do list would you most like to see?
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's a question I should have prepped for. Who would I like to see? Oh, I can't, like my brain's gone predictably blank. I feel like there are so many. Maybe something like, I'm not even a big style magazine fan, but I reckon like the editor of Vogue would be pretty cool. But that would be a fairly complex setup, wouldn't it? They've probably got the big whiteboards with like things all over the place and schedules and whatever. But I think maybe because I've read they're making a Devil Wears Prada version 2 film, like a follow-up film, maybe that's what put that into my head. There are just so many really good answers to that question.
Yes, there are. Well, you can tell me a bunch more, but that's a good one. I'm definitely curious with anybody like that, how much of what they're doing is delegating. Like when it actually comes to the getting tasks done, how many tasks are they doing versus just thinking?
How strategic is it? How much are they just controlling and delegating entirely? I reckon it's it's probably that. Probably they don't actually do a lot of the work themselves. They've just got a team of minions running around doing all the work for them.
Yeah, so I like that visual. Well, is there anything else that you would like to share?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I was quite proud of myself for learning. Like, this was one of the ticks that I've already done on my 60 for 60 list, to actually learn all the states of America. That was actually really hard.
That's impressive. Most Americans don't know them. Yeah.
It was really fun, but really hard. I found one of the ways that I can make a task really dopamine inducing for me is to kind of add that element of novelty and competition. That's what ADHD brains need: urgency, novelty, interest, and competition. So that kind of ticked 2 of those off and really made it easier for me to learn. I don't know if I had to do it on the spot now, whether I'd be able to replicate it, but I'd certainly get to, like, there's always one that I'm like, what is the last one? Quite often it'll be Nebraska. Don't know why, but that will be the one that I can't remember. But I would definitely get to 48, maybe with like 2 absolutely kicking myself going, what are they? But yeah, that was quite fun.
That's like the whole plot of one of the episodes of Friends, is that it's impossible to list all 50 states.
I was a huge Friends fan, and I don't remember that. I'm gonna have to look that up.
I think it's an early, maybe like season 3 Thanksgiving episode, because Ross isn't allowed to eat Thanksgiving dinner until he finishes it.
Okay. Oh, I've got to look that up for sure.
So yeah, you can watch it and feel that catharsis and feel proud of yourself.
Definitely. Well, I've always been absolutely shocking at geography. The next thing that I taught myself after the States was all the countries of the world. And again, I think if I was taken out of this scenario, and there's only like 197 countries, I don't know how up to date it is. Things change. But when this particular quiz on a website called Sporkle, which is like a quizzing website, I don't know how up to date it is, but as of it being something like 197 countries, I sat, and you only have 15 minutes to type them all in. You're like, oh, what have I missed? And yeah, I found Africa quite hard, but I genuinely knew nothing about geography. It's always been like, oh, I'm terrible at geography. And I thought, well, why don't you do something about it? So having a little novelty and competition kind of task to do with myself, when I first started having a go at the countries of the world, I got 14%, and I got very gradually from 14% up to 100%. So that was, I only had to do it once, and then I could tick it off as done. But yeah,
that's so cool. I love how diverse the categories on your 60 before 60 list are, as we've demonstrated by picking out a few of them. That's really cool. The learning, fun, the trying something new. It's a very cool list.
It's a diverse list.
What is a cloudberry?
Oh, they have them they grow in Finland. They're meant to be like probably the most expensive berries in the world, and they are absolutely beautiful. I did try them when I was in Helsinki last year. I don't know if they only grow in Helsinki, but I think they grow in the snow or something like that. I don't know. I really need to look up more about what a cloudberry actually is, rather than just, I want to taste one.
Well, now I want to try one. That was
they do taste heavenly.
Well, that sounds like it from the name, cloudberries. It sounds like a heavenly berry.
Yeah, sounds like a cherub would sit on them.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. You're very fun. I like your brain. Thank you for sharing. Have a great day.
I'm Jen Tracy, and you've been watching The To-Do Show. If you're curious about how other people tackle their days, and honestly, who isn't, there's another conversation right here that'll probably surprise you. Go check it out. And here's something interesting. There's actually research showing that people fall into 8 distinct patterns when it comes to how they organize their lives. Productivity and psychology experts like Adam Grant and Gretchen Rubin have been studying this for years. We built a quiz based on that research, and people keep telling us it's weirdly accurate. It takes about 5 minutes, and you'll understand why certain systems work for you and why others never stick. Head to thetodoshow.com or check the link in the description to take the quiz. And please, please, please hit subscribe, and you can check that off your to-do list.